Thank you for talking to me. I was fascinated by this movie and this.
Oh my gosh, I'm really excited to get a steer for how it's going to go down in the States. It's quite, yeah, I'm interested. What do you think?
I'm very interested to hear what men would say about it as opposed to women. I think that also is a very interesting conversation.
Yes, yes, I'm sure. Okay, well, fire ahead. I'll see what I can do for you.
Well, what was it that sparked the idea for doing this? Was there something you were looking to explore, something you wanted to say? I mean, how did it start?
Well, I guess it started because during sort of my late 20s and early 30s, when I'd had my second son, I started to feel this sort of enormous pressure and this sort of cultural steer towards this have it all culture that seemed to be angled at women particularly. And, you know, you can, the sort of messaging that was like, you can have kids and go to work and be massively successful. You can do everything really well. And, you know, it won't cost you anything except your sanity, which is what I saw. And I experienced myself on some level and continue to. What was so funny was that the sort of world was suggesting that we can do all of these things, and yes we can, but there is as I said before, there is a cost. And all I could see around me at this most sort of like what I would say was a liberated time was like a common female crisis, and I wanted to talk a bit more honestly about that with other women, I guess, ultimately. And it's not, I guess, I mean, it's not just about modern feminism, it's also about how we can kind of coexist as men and women now, what that actually looks like, what this sort of female modern movement has done to men, how people behave when they're rejected, financial disparity, like all of it. It's all in there on some level.
You've collaborated as a producer on Secret Diary of a Call Girl and I Hate Susie, but what made this the project that you wanted to tackle as a writer and a director?
Well, I guess like I love movies. I felt like I wasn't ever reading a script that was entirely honest about what it meant to be a woman. I think things have improved since I started writing the script. I started writing it like, I keep saying 7 years ago, but it's actually 9 years ago. So my son's now 9. So the landscape has changed, you know, considerably, but obviously there's still a way to go. That said, I didn't recognize myself or my peers in the things that I was watching. And so it felt like something that I don't know, I just felt very headstrong about taking full control of the entire thing. I was gonna write, I was writing it, directing it, and was gonna like exec it. I mean, write it, star in it, and exec it. And it wasn't until the sort of end, kind of sort of close to it getting financed, that I said I'm going to direct it too.
Is it more challenging to stare down the blank page and write a script, or is it more challenging to direct yourself acting?
It's more challenging to sit down and start writing, I think. It's tiring and really confusing directing yourself, but it's my sort of vanity that I have as an actor was very quickly subsided, and I was able to watch myself on screen and not feel in any way judgmental of the way I looked or anything like that, which I thought was going to be a challenge. But because when I do sort of self tapes, you know, often you're like, well, this is shit, basically. Shit, I'm going to do it 100 times. I hate the way I look, I hate the sound of my voice, all the stuff that, you know, most actors can attest to, I think. But and I got over that instinct really, really quickly. So definitely sitting down and writing is more of a challenge.
Was this a script that you wrote and finished and then went and shot what was on the page, or was there an evolution to what you wrote? Did you make a lot of changes over a period of time?
I would say that the film that you see is pretty loyal to the original script. There's a few scenes that were cut because it was just repetitive and unnecessary and wasn't doing any more peddling. And but it didn't change dramatically from I don't know what number draft it was on by the time we ended up filming it. It wasn't a frightening amount of drafts. I guess maybe a bit too lazy for that, or I don't know, but it was, what you see is very close to where I ended up with the writing process.
At any point along the way, either in the script form or once you had shot it and had a finished movie, did you show it to anybody? Did anybody give you any kind of good feedback or advice that you feel really sort of helped guide you?
Yes, I went to a few people. I went to my closest collaborator and best friend, Lucy Preble, who I worked with I've worked with all for the last 15 years, and most recently we did I Hate Susie together. And she came into the edit suite at the time when I felt very confused by the edit, and I wasn't entirely sure all of it was making sense. And sure enough, I mean, she is like the queen of clarity, so she found she was like, none of it makes sense. No, she wasn't, but she was, you know, she was tough in places where it needed some guidance. And then we showed it to a handful of people, some of the editors' friends and producers and stuff, and it's a really yeah, it was quite a challenging time, because look, this film isn't going to be for everyone. It is very, very divisive, but both in its tone, its style, its storytelling. It's not terribly mainstream. It's quite a lot. The characters are very unforgiving and very coarse, and so I got a lot of criticisms up front, and what I realized is it just genuinely comes down to people's taste and which cloth they're cut from and what their experiences of life have been, because there was no way to sort of bend that film and make it more palatable. And every time I did do that in a sort of knee-jerk reaction to what someone had said, it started to feel really diluted and really even more confused.
It's interesting. For some reason, it's always jarring when a woman gets slapped.
Yeah.
What was it like to do that scene where Mandy slaps Pete and then Pete slaps Mandy back? And what made you want to include that?
Because I've often had, when you talk about sort of equal rights or equality in male and female sort of straight relationships, and quite often, you know, that is waged back at you about, you know, well, if, you know, in only with really stupid people who kind of what can I say that's more diplomatic? I can't. So yeah, just stupid people who sort of make that error of suggesting, well, you know, if she hit me, I should be able to whack her back. This is when it comes to sort of arguing about equality in the male-female dynamic, I guess. But I mean, it's a really sort of warped and confused and exhausting conversation that doesn't really go anywhere. I've seen some sort of terrible behavior in my life from people in the face of rejection, and people who are really, really scared can do some really, really mean things. And so I just wanted to include it in all of its brutality, I guess.
Was that something you had a lot of conversations about when you shot that scene? I mean, did you speak to the actor about it, or did you just say, you know, this is what it is, so we're gonna have to just go for it?
I just said, this is what it is, this is what it means. I think we're just gonna have to go for it. I mean, we affected the sound of it in post-production. But I felt it, let's say. But I think I was running on such huge amounts of adrenaline at that period, because it's right at the end of the shoot. It was literally the last 3 days, that I'm not sure I would have felt anything physically, because I was so disassociated from my body at that stage in the process of making the movie, which is slightly alarming considering I was pregnant. But I was operating in another space entirely.
You've previously talked about how you want to work with your friends, and that you only want to do work that is meaningful to you and that you can be invested in. What are you doing to make sure that continues to happen? Does that mean you are going to be more involved creatively with every project you do now? How are you figuring that out?
Yeah, I feel like I just want to not work all the time, work on things that I feel aligned with and really excite me and mean I can push forwards even more if that feels necessary. But I think when you're creating something from the ground up, it's quite hard, especially with a family, to do that a handful of times in a year. So for me, my biggest challenge at the moment is trying to work out how to just kick back a bit. And I really found going from being pregnant, filming Rare Beasts, directing it, post-production with a brand new baby girl, into I Hate Susie, I think it just knocked my block off. And so my quest moving forward is definitely working with people on things that have either come from me or things that are very inspiring, or really fun things with fun people that don't take up a lot of time, or just not working.
What do you feel you've learned from the experience of directing that you think might influence or change how you do it the next time?
I wouldn't be in it. I would work closely with a producer that I've just recently worked with, and who is very, very good on script. I think that's really, really important. I would, but otherwise, I don't know what I would change. I guess it's part of an evolution, so things will naturally be different and hopefully better and more refined, but I can't guarantee that. But definitely not be in it is the first thing that kind of comes to mind.
Well, I appreciate you talking to me about. Clearly you had a very clear vision and feeling for this film, so I'm very excited to see what else you do in that way next. So
thank you. Thanks so much.